Okay, I just wanted to post a quick video just to help with wrapping up the culminating floor plans. So we're just going to pretend that this is one of your well-drawn floor plans from class. Just wanted to show it as an example. So now that we've placed our walls, windows, doors, furniture, we can look at starting to hatch, add notes, add dimensions. So one of the first things we can do is using the hatch command. We can make sure we have it set to solid and use that to fill in our wall solid. It'll show up whatever color you have it from whatever layer you're on, but it will print black when you print the PDF. Okay, so now that that's done, before we start adding notes and dimensions, we need to find out what the scale is for our drawing. So you'll want to go to the paper space layout that's been set up on the drawing. So for this, we're going to use 11 by 17 inch paper. And what you're going to want to do is double click into the viewport, find your layout, and just get it roughly in the middle of the paper. And what you can either do is while you're active in the viewport, or you can click it like that, one or the other. You're going to want to take a look down at the bottom right where you see these random numbers. And that's where you're going to pick your scale for the viewport window. So this is going to vary for each of you depending on the size of your house. So as you'll see, there's 3/16 of an inch, but there's a lot of empty space on the side of my paper, so I think I'm going to increase the scale a little bit and go to 1/4 of an inch equals a foot, and that seems to work for my layout. It fills out the page a little bit nicer. Okay, so now that that's set, when you select it, you're going to see it stays 1/4 of an inch equals a foot. So now we're going to go back to model space and set this to match. So it might not be it that when you come back to model space, you're going to want to click it in model space and make sure it matches, because what this is going to do is when you start adding notes and dimensions, they are going to be scaled automatically to properly fit for your 11 by 17 setup, the scale that you set for your drawing. Okay, so now that that's set, you can start adding dimensions. We can add some overall dimensions here. And actually, before we do that, make sure you've set it to, it's still on decimal. From the last exercises we did, you want to set it to architectural. So you want it to read off in feet and inches. Okay, so now we're going to add a quick dimension for this side. An overall dimension for here. And then I'm going to add a secondary stringer of dimensions for the sections of wall. I'm going to hit continue and do the rest of the wall. So another thing you can do, because these are kind of all odd numbers, they're not nicely rounded, you can click on this little arrow to go back to the dimension styles. It should be highlighted on the current one. We're going to hit modify, primary units, and then precision. We can set that to 0 feet 0 inches, and what that's going to do is round up the numbers to the nearest inch. So instead of that fractional inch, it's going to be a nice round number. So 4 foot 4 inches instead of what it was before. Okay, so now that that's done, we can also add some text for, say, room names in caps lock, and also say approximate room sizes from the inside dimensions. So just for the sake of that, I'm going to put 50 by 30 feet. Make that bold. You can also set justification if you want. And another thing, if these are finding this relatively small, because again, that's equivalent of like 2 millimeters on paper, 1/16 of an inch is very small, so we might want to increase the size of the room names as suggested earlier in the course when we were looking at the AutoCAD example, the handout. There was some reference material there for 3/32 of an inch for room names. You can see that makes it a little bit bigger. You can increase this if you want. It's really up to you. So now that that's set, when you go back to 11 by 17 on your paper space layout, you'll see that that text and dimensions shows up. You may just want to move it around, recenter it, make it look nice. And another thing we don't want to forget that we've set this scale. You're going to want to include, again, as discussed, some details about the project. Like you can, at minimum, put your name, scale, but you can even give it, like, project name and title, who drew it, and scale would all be good information to add. So again, if you're just in paper space, you don't have to worry about scale as long as you're not in the window, and you can even add text in here. Okay, and that's showing up as yellow. You can barely see it. Just going to check what layer that's on. Okay, so dimensions. You can add it to any other layer. It's just for some reason it's turning it yellow. It's a little bit hard to see, so I'm going to put it on layer 0. And I'm also going to increase the size of it. So I'm going to turn that into 30 seconds of an inch minimum. You just see it looks a bit nicer. You can even go more than that if you prefer. So after that's done, you can either go click the icon badge and then go to print, and it's plot basically means print, or from your paper space layout you can do Control P. I typically do Control P. Everything is already set up. You can preview the drawing, the print if you want, or just go right to hitting OK, and what that will do, it'll pop up a window to see where you want to save your PDF, which you'll be submitting for feedback and assessment. All right, good luck.